Hello and welcome to this second video in the series on resilience. My name is Mark Simpson from Resilient Changing, and today I'm going to guide you through aspects of individual resilience. So in the first video we covered the intro to resilience and debunked a few myths. Now we're going to go into the aspects of individual resilience. By way of a recap, we use the resilience core, the model developed by the Resilience Centre, and the 5 essential aspects of the resilient core are that purpose, so our reason for getting up, perseverance, how we remain determined in spite of adversities, equanimity, how we live in a choiceful and balanced way, authenticity, being our true self, and self-reliance, so being able to access the resources that we need to help us thrive. Before we move into the model in more detail, just a brief bit of science. So the model itself is based on over 25 years of research by Dr. Gail Wignold and co at the Resilience Centre. And the tool is very robust. So in short, we look at reliability. So is the tool consistent when it measures a construct? And we look at that, first of all, in terms of content validity. So does the tool capture the depth and breadth of resilience? And the tool used and was developed using qualitative research. So it was hundreds of interviews to learn what resilience is. And then a tool was developed to measure resilience. So that included construct validity. So does the tool actually measure what we think resilience is? And if it does, do the results reflect our guesses about what resilience should be? So for example, one of the theories is if you have higher resilience, you should have a lower depression. And this relationship has been shown repeatedly in research using these resilience tools. And if you're resilient, you should have a higher life satisfaction, higher optimism, higher stress management capabilities, better physical health, higher morale, etc. And again, these results have been proven repeatedly. A final element that's really helpful is having normative data. So these measures have been used extensively around the world. In fact, we've got data from over 3 million people from 150 plus countries. So in short, the tool is very robust and very reliable. Now moving forward, some real examples of how and why resilience really makes a difference. So the first thing we know is that resilient people actually live longer when they have purpose. In fact, how long you live is around 20% genetic and 80% linked to your lifestyle and the environment that you're in. And what we found is people with purpose live longer. So a Canadian study followed 6,000 people for 14 years and found that those people that could articulate their sense of purpose, and that's deeply personal, but they had a 15% lower risk of dying. A further study by Robert Butler for the National Institute on Aging found that people who could articulate their sense of purpose were living up to 7 years longer than those that couldn't. The gentleman in the video is a prime example. So Fuja Singh, a British Sikh Centurion marathon runner, and he's beaten a number of world records. This was him at the sprightly age of 102. He's 109 years old now. So I figure if somebody can run a marathon at 102, then there are lots of other things that we can do. The next one is that resilient people tend to be successful. And one of the roots to that is the power of perseverance. So, for example, in West Point, the US Military Academy, they found when looking at the markers for success in terms of people successfully passing the courses, passing out, was that grit and determination were much more important than just intelligence and more than just fitness. Everybody that arrived was in good shape, but those people that could tough it out made a real difference. A further study by Duckworth and Seligman in 2006 found that the correlation between self-discipline and achievement was twice as large as the correlation between IQ and achievement. So ability alone is not the key determinant. It's the ability to persevere, the ability to continue even in the face of adversity. What we also know is that resilient people respond better to stress. Yet these people tend to be able to bounce back from these stressful incidents much more quickly and much more effectively. And again, that was a further set of studies by Barbara Fredrickson in 1998 and 2001. And what we find is resilient people tend to be much better at solving problems and more resourceful. Some of the theories behind that are that when we're under stress, oxygen moves away from areas like our brain to our larger muscles, our legs, our arms, in order to prepare for things like fight and flight. Whereas when we're able to moderate and regulate our responses, we can oxygenate the brain, and then we're better equipped when it's oxygenated to think clearly, to solve problems. What we've also found is that resilient people feel much better and are less depressed than people with lower resilience. And a study by the Resilience Centre found that only 6% of highly resilient people reported symptoms of depression, whereas that rose to 24% for those people with low resilience. And you can see from the chart other stark contrast in terms of how people feel when they've got a higher resilience capacity versus when they've got a lower resilience capacity. And what we know is that resilient people are far more satisfied with life. So they found these adversities actually made them grow. So there's a lot of research on post-traumatic stress disorder, and we're seeing more research now on post-traumatic stress growth. So people can actually take that as a learning and development opportunity. But what we do find is people with a high resilience capacity don't over-personalize, so they don't take it personally. They don't attribute it to blame or fate. They're able to take action, they're able to move on, and critically, they're able to look after self and practice self-care. Now, dropping down a level, we'll go into the resilience core in more detail in terms of the aspects that make it up. So the first thing around the resilience core is purpose. So do we build a set of meaningful goals, things that we can really connect to? A lot of heart-based stuff in here, things that really emotionally connect to us. Do we actually feel valued? And are we living a fulfilling life? And in doing so, when we're purposeful, are we able to set some really clear priorities, things that are important to us, in order that we've got a set of meaningful direction? So again, what we can look at is, where can we be purposeful in our life? Do you have a clear meaning? Do you have a clear understanding of what's important to you? If you don't, it's something you might want to think about. Then in terms of authenticity, this is our ability to show up and be a visible, true version of ourselves. So who we are, who we want to be. And in doing so, are we then confident in expressing that? And sometimes that can be confidence in expressing how we think and how we feel, when it might even feel risky, when others may not share the same views. And in doing so, with this confidence, because we're being ourselves, are we able to continue even if there's some form of conflicting opinion, some criticism, some objection to what we're doing, in order that we can determine our own direction in life and not live a life that maybe others feel we should live. And we're really basing those decisions around our values and what's important to us. And when we live an authentic life, we really do allow our true self to be seen. We really are confident and courageous in the way that we act. Equanimity. So this is really about how we understand and act upon the level of choice that we have. And sometimes that can be choices that we may not have considered. And we're able to do that when we're less overwhelmed by life's events. We're able to reframe things. We're able to reframe what we think and how we feel in a positive and generative way. So again, we can be very agile and adaptable to change when we do that. We're able to recognize when we're not in balance, and we can then develop strategies to help us recenter. And we can take a really proactive approach to taking care of ourselves and maintain a positive grounding. And that includes using tools like humour to help us to take care of ourselves and to help our well-being. And then what we can also do is recognise the things that have got a negative impact upon our balance and what we can do about that. And when we put all this together, we can be really choiceful in our response to any situation. Self-reliance. Now, we've seen society, countries, communities, individuals being challenged in many ways under COVID, and self-reliance has been a huge part of this. Now, self-reliance, as I've said before, is not to be confused with doing it all yourself. It really is about how we utilise our own skills and capabilities, our behaviours, how we consider our self and public perceptions, and how we're able to access resources, and not just our own personal resources and skills. So this is an example of when asking for help is a strength, and we're confident in being able to do that because we can depend upon ourselves, we can trust in ourselves, and we can trust in others. And this really helps us with this can-do confidence that we can then enact, not only in conscious choice, but conscious action. Which leads us to perseverance. So again, this is, despite everything else going on around us, that we can act with a focus towards the goals that are meaningful for us. That we're really conscious about what can derail us, and we can develop positive responses for that in order that we take meaningful action. And we can view things much more than a binary succeed or fail outcome. So more shades of colour to this. And we can build some really generative and learning behaviours. And then when we're able to do that, we can keep focused on those outcomes. We can continue that persistence because we've got a degree of confidence and belief in order that we maintain this focus, and we can maintain that discipline, and we treat it all as an experience that we can grow and develop from. Now, resilience doesn't just happen on its own. So we have a series of supports underneath this, what we call the resilience supports, and I'll briefly summarise these and how they help with the overall resilience capacity. So the first thing is about how we manage stress, so stress management. And stress, we talk about the inability to cope with the situation or environment in hand and not able to access our resources that effectively. Now, stress builds, and stress is a part of life. So when you're resilient, this is not about stress never occurring, but it's about how you respond to it. And we need to be able to let off steam. So this can include a series of what we call stress busting activities, and these can vary hugely for each individual. So for some it could be music, it could be exercise, it could be painting, time with family, the whole piece. A key part of how we manage stress is the way that we manage sleep, and not just the quantity but the quality. And we often find that we run sleep workshops to help with this. It's also about avoiding self-made traps. So how preparation and practice can help us and lower our stress and allow us to really flourish and to shine. How with stress management, rather than internalizing and ruminating and worrying, we can feel confident to ask for help. And in fact, we see that as a strength and not as a weakness. Sometimes it's about accepting our situation, acknowledging it is as it is, COVID being another example. We've got a series of restrictions, and rather than rallying and pushing against them, we may just have to accept that that's the way it is for a period. And then finally, when we're not at stress all the time, we can exercise that wonderful muscle in the head, problem solving, and we can be really creative. In fact, we can even access our inner child, the one without a set of limiting beliefs, and use that in a really creative way. And why does this all make a difference? Well, when we manage our stress, we can strengthen our immune system, which in turn reduces the risk of illness and disease. And COVID aside, other illnesses are available, so the more we can look after our immune system, the better. When we improve the quality of sleep, it not only helps our recovery, but it helps us from a mental, physical and emotional sense. And when we're managing our stress, it gives us a greater energy and enthusiasm for work, for family, for hobbies, for life in general. We're not internalizing everything. And it allows us to really perform better because we can think more clearly and we can have an increased focus because we're not internalizing again. The next aspect of the resilience support is our healthy lifestyle choices. And we live a really sedentary lifestyle, so it's really easy to slip into less than healthy behaviours, particularly again while we're being locked down in many areas. So again, things to think about: how we rest and recuperate, but also how we relax. So what is it that we do that really helps us relax? The things that will bring a calm to us, will lower our heart rate, as well as what are the things that are going to raise our heart rate. So how are we going to exercise? What's our general mobility like? So again, many of us working from home, if you've got a desk-based job, then are you getting up at least every 15 minutes and doing something physical? You know, we should spend at least 30 minutes a day walking. It will significantly reduce the chance of dying prematurely. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes in one go. You could break it down into short 5-minute walks. Recent research tells us we should be spending at least 4 hours a day on our feet. How can we do that when we work at home? Well, a good example is we can use a standing desk and we can use that to move around. Not only does it help with our mobility, but it can also help with our general creativity and sense of well-being. Equally, it's important to eat a balanced diet. That can be challenging during the COVID diet, but again, it's really important as part of this self-care. And why it makes a difference when we lead a healthy lifestyle? Well, the first thing is we feel better about ourselves. It helps with our confidence. It can help reduce our stress and relax us. It also increases our physical well-being, which in turn reduces that risk of illness and disease. We can not only live longer, but we can live better. It improves our general mental and emotional well-being and our ability to connect with others. And finally, wrapping it all up, we can feel in control. And at a time when we may feel we've got lower control because of certain restrictions, this can be pretty significant for us. Another critical element in our resilience support is the ability and quality of how we connect to others. So are we spending time with people that enhance us? So what we call, people that help us gain and grow and enrich ourselves, rather than things and people that drain us. So what we might call the mood hoovers, the fun sponges. Are we making time for the relationships that really matter and showing people that they matter? One of the ways that we can do that is to listen to others and to truly listen to them. So asking them how they are and really noticing, and not just listening with our ears, but with our eyes, with our heart, with our head. And particularly at the moment, people have never needed a good listening to like they do now. And are we reflecting and acting upon the things that really help us that really make us feel good? Are we doing that? In order that we can be our best self, so our most attentive, our most empathetic, our most caring self, and that includes with ourselves as much as it includes with others. Now, why does it make a difference when we connect to others? Well, we are a social creature. So what we found is, and again, social distancing aside, or I prefer to call it physical distancing, we know that connected people have improved physical health and well-being. The immune system is stronger, which in turn can help us live longer. We also know that connected people have got a much lower risk of depression and anxiety. They've got a greater sense of perspective and they've got a greater sense and feeling of support. And when we give and we receive support and encouragement for others, it helps us and others gaining confidence, feel valued and live authentically. And what we find is connected people have a strong sense of belonging, which again is really, really important. In terms of balance, a number of things when we think of being in balance. So that's our ability to be present when we're physically present. And what I mean by that is emotionally and mentally there. So we may not be, You know, a prison, we might be there, but we can be thinking else of other things. So we can be a prisoner of our past, worrying about what happened. We can be a prisoner of our future, concerned about the things that may or may not happen. So when we live in balance, we're able to be present then. What we're also doing is things like scheduling and making time for the things that matter to us, rather than just reacting. Now, I know in the current environment, it's not easy to make certain long-term plans, particularly around travel, but we can still make time for the things that matter and schedule that time. And time for the people and the things that matter to us, including time for ourselves. And it's critical, particularly at a time when boundaries can blur and there's a lot of things we've got to take care of on a professional and on a personal level, that yes, we absolutely work hard, but we can play hard, we can let off steam, we can love deeply, and we can really show people that we care. And in doing so, doing the things in life that are fun, the things that make us laugh, the things that make us smile, the things that energize us. And when we're able to live in balance, then we immediately feel under less pressure, in part because we're being choiceful. We've got that sense of control again. We're not feeling like we're being pulled in several directions at once, which can be a real challenge when you're at home working, you're homeschooling, you're caring for others, you're concerned about others. That can be a real difficulty. But if we can exert some degree of control, what Stephen Covey calls the inner ring of control and influence, rather than being at the outer ring of concern. And when we're able to do that, it increases that sense of calmness, feeling centered, feeling clear-headed. And we're actually able to enjoy life rather than just feel like we're being dragged along, or at the moment under COVID, you know, we're in this this Groundhog Day that just keeps going over with no concept of time or no feeling of an end. But actually, when we're in balance, we can just take these things in our stride. The next one is about being engaged, and that's really connecting with whatever it is that we're doing and connecting with life, and what really matters to us. And again, when we do this, we don't worry about failure. We treat things as growth and generative opportunities. We don't worry about embarrassment. We're the only people that can make us feel embarrassed. We don't worry about being rejected, because we know that if we don't try, then we definitely won't succeed. And we really choose to enjoy the things that move and stimulate us. We take time to notice that, and we take even more time and action to invest in that. And we're able to plan, commit and act, so we can make things real, even in the current environment. Now, we often create these myths. You know, it's a myth, for example, that we don't have time. It's often that we choose not to make time. And if you haven't got a bucket list, then I recommend you've got one. But also, if you've got a bucket list, don't put off taking things off it. You don't have to save everything up for later in your life, because who knows when later will be. So for every item you put on your list, take 2 off. You can always top it up again. And again, why does engagement make a difference? Well, when we're engaged, we truly appreciate what we've got rather than dwelling on what we haven't got. And we're not imprisoned by our past or held captive by a future that hasn't even occurred yet. We're able to enjoy today. We're in more of a growth mindset and a growth position, so we're more open to opportunities. We'll embrace opportunities. We'll look for those new experiences. And we'll be brave, and ideally, in fact, we'll be fearless. So we think more about what we've got to gain rather than what we could lose. And we often regret the things that we haven't done rather than the things that we have. And when we're fully absorbed in life, we're able to enjoy it and make the most of it. So that's a quick dive into the aspects of the resilience core and the resilience supports. Next time, we'll cover the approach that we take at Resilient Changing to help develop resilience. And again, if you want to know anything else in the meantime, here are the contact details, or check out resilientchanging.com. And there you can find details on individual resilience, collective resilience and team resilience. So we help with all of those areas. I hope you found this of value, and thanks for taking time to tune in.